What's up, Lego builders? Welcome back to Coconut Brick Studios for week 2 of building the Battle of Coruscant in Lego. Week 1 was an absolute hit. Thank you guys so much for the support. I think it's coming up on 8,000 views already, which is absolutely insane. It makes me so happy to see how excited everyone is for this project. This week, now that the planning is over, is going to be all about building. I'm going to start laying out the foundation and grid work of this city. This mock is going to be very different from what you've seen me do in the past, so the beginning is going to be a little different too. I can't just go right in and start building skyscrapers and buildings and stuff. I want this to be a very neat, organized, grid-like layout, so everything will be the same size, everything will match each other, and it'll look like a proper city. If you're ready for episode 2 to get started, don't forget to execute order 66 on that like button. And if you're new to the channel, watching for the first time, consider subscribing and tapping that little notification bell so you will know as soon as episode 3 drops. All right, before I get into building this week, I want to talk about this skyscraper again. I didn't get to say everything I wanted to about it in the last update as I ran out of time, but I wanted to share my favorite feature about aspect about this building, and that is how customizable it is. When you're looking at Coruscant, there are a lot of different styles of buildings, obviously, but I noticed there is a general kind of style that a lot of these buildings follow, and that is like a tall rectangle with an oval rounded top with a lot of variations of this style. So you have some that are wider, some with, other sections of the building that jut out the front or the back, or just different shapes and sizes, but following that same general idea. And so what that means is I can take this base model and change it in different ways to create different looking buildings without having to order in tons of different kinds of pieces or design whole new skyscrapers. For example, I can put some more slopes up here in between these two quarter pieces and make this building wider, basically as wide as I want. I can make this section right here wider and throw some windows across the top and then running down the sides to kind of create some kind of apartment building. And I've got these quarter tower pieces that I was building on my stream on Saturday, and I plan on sticking these on the front of the building like this, basically creating a new shape of building while still using the same pieces, because all of these pieces right here I used to create this front section right here, and I got a piece that I can put on the back as well. The reason I really like this is because now I know what kinds of parts to order in bulk, and I don't have to take time ordering in all different kinds of pieces and designing a bunch of different designs of building. And another reason why I really like this is because I feel like it'll help me capture the look of Coruscant on this mock, because I don't want these buildings to look all wacky and weird and like they don't fit on the planet. And so if I can keep this same general architectural style, I don't even know if that's a word, but in different variations of the buildings, I can get buildings that look different but still give you the same Coruscant vibe. We'll talk more about that later, as we get into buildings and stuff. I'll probably revisit that. But what I'm going to be doing next is starting to lay out the city and start building this section. I also got to tear all this up. This doesn't belong here. This was just for like thumbnails and a visual aid of sorts. So this mock is going to be different from my previous mocks. Typically I would throw down a layer of filler brick and a layer of plate on the top of that and start building. But in an effort to change things up and kind of save money and just try a new style, I'm going to be working a lot more with snot, which is just bricks like this on their side, so the stud's not on top. And so all of my roads are going to be snot roads, and then I'm going to be building little sections of plate where the cities, bases, whatever kind of structure I'm going to be building is going to go. This will be nice because I won't have to plate off and tile off this entire area, which I'm hoping will save me a little bit of money, and it'll be easier to build this whole thing in sections instead of having to worry about, the bottom floor of everything gets finished at the same time. If that doesn't make sense, I'm sorry. I'm a little bit tired today, and I feel like I'm having a hard time kind of verbalizing what I'm thinking, but I'm going to jump into a time lapse of me building this, and it should make a little bit more sense. Laying out the mock means a lot of measuring and marking out. I'm going to lay down a short wall of bricks, which mark out the road between two sections that will have the buildings and base. The far blocked out area will be the resident section, and the closest side will be the clone base. This is where the measuring comes in. I want the road to be an even number of studs wide and wide enough for 2 droid tanks to be able to drive down the road next to each other. Each of the blocked off sections will be the same width. Doing this will help me know how much space I have for each section and will help with the overall symmetry of this project. Symmetry and proportions are going to be very important here, as it's a grid layout typical of a modern city with one side mirroring the other, and not a natural terrain where things just kind of come and go, different shapes, different proportions, and stuff like that. If I mess something up now, it'll be a big pain to fix down the line. But so far, I love this style of building. Using patterns and grids to make everything neat and organized is just so satisfying, and will really help me know where everything's going to go and how big it'll all be. Here's what I got done. I have this road area blocked out. It's a pretty wide road, and it's going to be all snot brick. So basically I'm just going to put a bunch of bricks on their side like this and run it down there. I kind of already talked about why I decided to go with snot instead of tile, because I didn't want all those weird gaps and patterns. You can see from a distance, you can kind of see the different bricks, but I don't think it's as big of a deal as if I was using tile. I needed to make this main road pretty wide because it leads right up to the Senate building, so obviously, you'd want a big road leading there. And I wanted to be able to fit 2 AATs on the road next to each other, so I'm going to have one right here and one right there. You can see there'll still be a little bit of a gap there, which is nice. I will be using this Mr. Idler design, but it'll be his blue version. Now on either side of this road, we've got these blocked off sections. These are where the buildings and stuff are going to go. On this side, I'm going to plate this all off and then start building those blocky square buildings we were talking about in the last update, and then put the skyscrapers and taller buildings up on top of that. And over here on this side is where the clone base is going to be. I'm still trying to figure out how the layout's going to work for that. Originally, I was thinking of one building right here and then another one right here with the motor pool in front where the vehicles would be, but that would make it so each building would only be this wide to be able to fit 2, one right there and then one right there. And these just don't feel very big to me, so I'm actually thinking about stacking them this direction, having one right here and one right here, because they're going to be rectangular, so they're not going to be very wide, they're just going to be long, and then having the vehicles over there. But I don't know if that'll look weird. I'll kind of have to look at some clone bases and see, how they're laid out to get a better idea of what I want to do here. Moving on, I've got some plates put down right here, 4x8 and 6x8. I have a ton of 6x8 and 4x8 from my Naboo and Umbara and Utapau mock. When I first started doing big mocks, I decided to pick a certain length that I wanted to work in, and that was 6 and 8 stud increments, and that allowed me to just buy a ton of these. So now, when I'm building future projects, I know I can either make my gaps 6 studs wide or 8 studs wide, and I'll have plenty of filler plate to put down. So that's going to go across the top of here, and then a layer of tile, and then the buildings. There's still a lot I need to talk about for up here as far as like where sidewalks are going to go, walls and other things, but I'll get into all that later when I actually start working on it. What I want to talk about next is the exterior of this mock and the frame. Because Coruscant is such a neat, organized, and grid-like city, I thought it would be nice to have a black frame running around the outside to kind of finish it off and frame it nicely. And I wanted to go with plate on its side because, brick is what you typically see, and so I wanted to do something that you don't see as often. And so I'm going to be putting it on some headlight bricks like that on its side with tile on the front. The problem I'm running into is when you stick these plates on their side, there is a little gap between the floor and the bottom of the plates, just because, these base plates are raised up off the ground slightly, and so is the headlight brick. This bothers me because now there's a little gap there, and you can see there's no studs behind these plates, so you can kind of almost see into the mock a little bit. You can see a little bit of those studs exposed right there. Now, this isn't a huge deal because the only way you're ever going to be able to see that is if you get down at eye level, basically, or a little bit above eye level. And most of my shots and showing the mock are going to be from this angle, and anybody who comes in here and looks at it is going to see it from this angle. So nobody's really going to see it, but I don't know if I'm going to end up not liking it after I finish the mock and have that there and have that gap there bothering me. But I also don't want to take the time to fill that gap with black bricks because I'm going to have to run along the entire length of this MOC just to put in bricks to cover up a hole that you'll only be able to see from a certain angle. So let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. Should I take the time to fill in these gaps between these headlight bricks, or should I just leave it? I have the same issue over there, so I'm going to think about it, figure that out, and when I have more to update you guys, I will check back in. I'm checking back in one last time for this week. I got some more of the frame put in. You saw a little bit of how this came together on that time lapse, and I talked about it already, but I just put down some 2x2 black tiles on top of those black plate, and it's just going to run the entire length of the MOC like that. Pretty simple, but I feel like it just adds a very nice, elegant look and vibe to this build. I did put some 1x dark bluish gray tile down right here in front of the frame, and I did this because I didn't want the snot road to butt directly into the frame, because you can see this tile right here sits just above the black frame. So if I were to have this snot road butt into that, you'd be able to see a little bit of this exposed back, and I didn't want that. I wanted it to be solid, so the snot road is just going to butt into that tile like that. Last thing I'm going to talk about is this base. So I got the entire width and length mapped out. This took a while. It's really tough for me to figure out what I want to do with this base. So here's a picture of the base, that Clone Wars episode I was talking about last week, The Enemy Within, or whatever it's called, with that clone deserter. And their base is lined up so the barracks are all on this side, and then the motor pool is over there. Obviously their base is much bigger than mine. Mine's just a tiny little section. So I'm kind of torn on what I should do for the layout. So I'm going to have a wall running around the exterior of the base on this side and this side. There's going to be no wall right here because, the base continues off in this direction. And so I'm thinking about maybe having the two buildings right here, one right here, and then one behind it, and then having this whole area for the motor pool. And then you can kind of imagine that it extends this way for different larger vehicles and more buildings back here. Another option I have is doing a building right here and a building right here with a road running down the middle and kind of like a little space up here and a little space up here for the vehicles. Let me know which design you think I should go with for the clone base. I'm interested to hear your guys' thoughts on this. So that wraps up this week. I know this week probably wasn't the most exciting episode. I didn't get to do a whole lot with the skyscrapers or build any cool bases and stuff, but this was very necessary and a very integral part of building a good, city MOC. And because I got so much of this kind of quote unquote boring work done, that means I am more free next week to do more of the fun stuff like the base walls, maybe even start on the buildings, tiling. I do need to figure out like what I'm going to do for like the sidewalks and lampposts and stuff. So I think next week should be more exciting, but I'm excited. This week I laid a good groundwork for future updates. All that being said, let's go hit the outro. So this episode definitely was not the most exciting. It ended up just being a lot of laying down brick, but that's good. That's a necessary step. And the more time I take in the beginning to, pay attention to the foundation, the better the rest of the MOC is going to look. As always, don't forget to let me know what you thought about this episode down below in the comments, and I will catch you guys next time. But until then, happy building.